It's been nearly 2 years since the TurboGrafx-16 Mini released. Time really does fly, holy crap. I remember being hyped as hell for this thing. Growing up, I only knew one kid who had the original console, and I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was an interesting system. In the USA, it didn't do too well back in the day, but it still holds a lot of nostalgia for people. I think a lot of us had, Sega or Nintendo consoles at that time, but we all knew one kid who had a TurboGrafx-16, right? Now, when the Mini released, it was kind of a strange thing. I got mine a bit early as Japan launched the line of Konami Minis earlier than the rest of the world. And I remember having other YouTubers come at me about breaking some kind of embargo date. No, I bought mine. I didn't get a review unit, so screw your embargoes, get off my ass, right? It's kind of weird. Now, this Mini Classic console release was met with a lot of hype. Like I said, I was pretty hyped. But also, there was a lot of confusion, unmet expectations, and problems that caused many people who bought one of these minis to never actually be able to play it, and people who just couldn't get their hands on one. So let's look back at this release and kind of revisit how things went down. So right after launch, I did get to play around with the TurboGrafx-16 Mini and the other two variants. I did videos on all of them. There was the core graphics, which was for the European market for whatever reason. And in Japan, they got the PC Engine Mini. Plus, in Japan, they also got the US and European versions as well. So they got the core graphics and the TurboGrafx. This inevitably caused a supply chain problem, in my opinion. With so many people wanting the TurboGrafx-16 Mini in North America, it didn't last very long and stock had remained in Japan for quite a while. People were left out unless you wanted to import a version of these minis. Why would Japan get stock of the TurboGrafx-16 Mini anyway? Didn't really make sense to me, but I'm sure they had some kind of reason for it. The other thing was that these minis were not sold in stores. Remember the NES, Super Nintendo Classic, the Genesis Mini, the PlayStation Classic? All of those could be bought either online from numerous retailers or in stores all over the place. Best Buy, Walmart, GameStop, Target, plenty of other locations. But not the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. These minis were all Amazon exclusives. In the US, Amazon. In the UK, Amazon. In Japan, Amazon. Stock in these were limited to whatever Amazon had. You could only rely on them or the secondary market. Now, the Core Graphics Mini in the UK lasted for sale for quite a bit longer than the TurboGrafx-16 Mini in the US. And essentially, there was no real difference between the two. Just the Core Graphics was smaller than the TurboGrafx. The game list was the same. Now, the PC Engine Mini could be a fine option for people as it, has lasted forever for retail, being shipped and sold from Amazon Japan. I mean, it's still available to be ordered right now. But it does have a few game differences, nothing major, and the controllers that are included with the PC Engine Mini do not have turbo functionality. Both of the other versions have that. They have turbo. But there are other, controller options for you out there, like the 8BitDo PC Engine Mini controllers that are wireless. That's an option. But, each of these consoles shipped with just one wired controller and a power cable. That was it, with the system, obviously. So already we have a couple problems here. The official controllers were only ever sold in a single white edition of the PC Engine controller that now had turbo sliders. These are, near impossible to find nowadays, well, for retail anyway, and they were very difficult to get in the US, so, there's really no way of getting multiple controllers that fit the theme of your chosen console version unless you bought multiples of the console. These were all launched for around $100 each, so not really practical for those wanting extra controllers that were the same color, right? Now, there are a couple more issues I want to mention. One that sucked, but maybe you could live with, and another that had devastating consequences. So first, with these being Amazon exclusives, if you bought the TurboGrafx-16 from Amazon in the US, these guys have no logical process for how to package items to be shipped. A lot of people received the TurboGrafx-16 shipped just in its original box, no shipping box, with a shipping label slapped onto it. So collectors were pissed. They were getting messed up boxes with, stickers on them. You will see this quite a bit looking at reviews on Amazon. It's one of the most common complaints out there. Now, the other thing you will see in those reviews is how their systems didn't work or the controllers didn't work. There are tons of people complaining about that. And there was a reason for this, and one that really should have been avoidable. So, many people wound up using whatever micro USB power supply that made sense to them, since the console didn't come with a brick for the, supplied power cable. Many wound up using a Raspberry Pi power supply, or others that were similar. Now, depending on what you used, perhaps the power supplied was just a little higher than the 5 volts, 2 amps the machine required, and boom, your console no longer works, or the USB ports for the controllers would go dead, and there's no way to play it anymore. This seemed like a very common problem, and this was bullshit, and it's a problem I still hear from a lot of people to this day. If you wanted to play it safe, you needed to buy the official power supply brick from Hori. Oh, but those were not easy to come by if you were outside of Japan. Even now in Japan, the cheapest price I see for this official brick is nearly $200. Makes no damn sense to me. It should have been included to begin with the console if it was going to have issues with other power supplies. I mean, you would think it would be fine using a power supply for another mini or, single board computer, but nope, your average consumer wouldn't know, and then they'd all of a sudden have a paperweight instead of a cool mini gaming machine. Now, there are ways for people to fix the dead USB ports, but this requires getting a new USB controller chip and replacing it on the console's board. This is not something everybody's going to be able to do or is willing to do or is even aware of, so it kind of sucks, especially for people who bought one of these things and had this issue happen when stock really started becoming unavailable. And there really wasn't any restocks of the TurboGrafx-16 Mini that I recall. It was in, and then it just kind of went out. It was gone. You couldn't get it no more from Amazon US. So a lot of people were screwed, selling bricked units on eBay and stuff for a discounted price because they just either return it or if the problem eventually happened, they couldn't get their money back, right? So now let's talk about the unmet expectations that I touched on in the beginning of this video. So whenever a console like this launches, a lot of people are waiting for news on how to hack the console and add more games and get more features that, the system didn't originally ship with. And this just did not happen for the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. So there was a proof of concept shown for a hack a while back, but nothing ever again. I mean, this was early on where the proof of concept was shown. As far as when the console launched. But for the past couple years, there have been just a couple updates concerning the hack. And both updates were just hey, this pandemic screwed things up, so there is no news. Situations change for people. And those working on hacking the console, have to put it on the back burner. They got other things going on. Who knows if work will ever start again for the hack or the TurboGrafx, Mini, or if someone else will wind up jumping into it and making their own hack. But I almost feel like with how limited of a release this thing was and how it's no longer the currently hyped product on the market, we just may never see a hack. But who knows? I mean, I would have liked to have a hack for this, but also at the same time, if I'm not creating one, I'm not creating the hack myself, I don't have any crazy expectations or, demands to make things happen. It's just hey, if it happens, cool. And we started just kind of expecting it because every mini console that came out, there was a hack, right? Sometimes people do these hacks out of their own enjoyment of the hobby. I don't know. I mean, look at it however you want. But overall, with what we received as far as the game list on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini goes, I'm perfectly happy with what I have. If I want to play other games, I have a million ways to do so. I just really like these official mini replicas of these retro consoles, and I just wanted to revisit this one with you guys. Maybe one day, these fools will re-release this console and get it back out to people, because there's still a lot of people who want one, and with the way they went about it, didn't happen for everyone, so kind of sucks. Let me know what you guys think down below. Really do appreciate every single one of y'all. Catch you on the next one. Bye.